Hello everyone. Please tell me, which city are you listening from? What time is it there? Is everything okay? Or does it feel like someone's watching you? I woke up to the sound of wind. Not the gentle kind that brushes trees and hums through the windows. This wind had weight. It howled. It pressed. It sounded like it wanted to get in. My eyes opened slowly. My body felt cold, much colder than usual. The ceiling above me wasn't the same one I had stared at every morning for the last 6 years. The paint was off-white, with a crack zigzagging across it like a crooked smile. The fan was missing. My fingers gripped the bedsheets. It felt rougher than my usual set. The scent was different too. Not lavender. Not freshly washed cotton. It smelled old, faintly of mold and forgotten places. Then the fear clicked in like a switch. This wasn't my room. This wasn't my bed. I sat up abruptly. The room around me was dim, lit only by a weak gray light seeping in through thin curtains. The walls were covered in pale floral wallpaper, yellowed and peeling in spots. Dust floated in the air like it hadn't been disturbed in years. I was alone, and I had no idea how I got there. Last night, I was in my own apartment. I remember brushing my teeth, checking my phone, and setting the alarm. I remember crawling into bed, pulling the covers over myself, and shutting my eyes. There were no drinks, no sleeping pills, no memory gaps. So why was I here? My phone was gone. There were no clocks. Only the sound of that wind clawing at the house outside. I stood up, my feet touched the icy wooden floor. The boards creaked beneath my weight. The room was bare, except for a nightstand with no drawers, and a mirror with a crack running down its center. My reflection in it seemed slightly delayed, a beat too slow, as if it had to think before moving. I walked to the door and turned the handle. It opened. The hallway was long and narrow, with faded rugs and crooked picture frames. The air smelled like dust and something faintly metallic. A buzzing sound came from somewhere deeper inside the house, like a faulty wire or an old refrigerator humming. I called out, "Hello." No response. I moved forward, passing closed doors and silent walls. One of the frames on the wall held a picture that made me stop. It was a photograph of me, not recently, as a child, standing beside someone I didn't recognize, a woman, tall and pale, with a hollow smile and deep-set eyes. Her hand rested on my shoulder in the photo. But I had no memory of this moment. No memory of her. I turned the frame around. No name, no date. Just dust. I stepped into the living room. The curtains were drawn tight, but faint light leaked in through the edges. A couch sat in the middle, too clean for a house this neglected. Across from it, a large smart TV sat on a low table. Its screen was off, but it reflected just enough light to show a faint image behind me. I looked back. Nothing there, but in the reflection, someone had been standing at the doorway, still, watching. My breath hitched. I turned back to the hallway. Empty. I stood frozen for several minutes before I moved again. I needed to get out. I reached the front door. It had 3 deadbolts and an iron chain. I turned the first click, the second click. The third refused to move. I pulled, I yanked, but the final bolt stayed locked. Then I noticed something. The keyhole in the door. A shadow moved behind it. Someone was on the other side, watching. I backed away. The shadow didn't move. I turned around and ran to the stairs. Yes, stairs. There was a second floor, maybe a phone. Maybe someone. Anything. The steps groaned as I climbed. The buzzing got louder. The air became colder. And then the smell hit me. Rot, faint, but definitely there. I reached the top of the stairs and froze. Every door on this floor was open. Every room was completely empty, except one, the door at the far end. It was slightly ajar. The buzzing came from there. I approached, pushing it open slowly. Inside was a nursery, a crib, a mobile spinning slowly above it, even though the air was still. And on the wall dozens of photographs. All of me sleeping, in different positions, different beds, different houses. One photo was from last night. I was in my own bed, in my apartment, lights off, covers pulled up, peaceful. In another, I was on a sofa, then on a bench, then in this very crib. I stumbled back. The mobile above the crib creaked once, and then the baby monitor beside it turned on. A soft white static hiss. Then a voice, hollow, soft female. You looked peaceful. Last night, I dropped the monitor. It hit the floor and shattered. The voice didn't stop. Why don't you sleep now? Just a little while. It's almost time. I turned to run. The hallway had changed. The stairs were gone. The floor stretched on endlessly. I ran anyway. Doors on either side opened and slammed shut as I passed. The pictures on the walls changed. No longer family portraits. Now just her. The woman from the photo, getting closer. Smiling wider. Eyes too dark. I reached a dead end. Only a door remained. I opened it and stepped into a new room. A bedroom. My bedroom. I was home again. The bed was the same. My lamp, my desk. My toothbrush still lying beside the sink in the bathroom. It was over. Somehow. It was over. I sat down on the bed, heart pounding. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. 3 a.m., and then I noticed the mirror across the room. My reflection was smiling, but I wasn't. I stood slowly staring into it. The smile widened, and behind me, she stood, watching, waiting. I blinked, and I was gone. Only my reflection remained, still smiling, still staring, as the woman turned to the bed, pulled the covers up, and waited for the next one to close their eyes. I remember the dream, or at least I think I do. It was cold, damp. I was walking through a field of tall grass, and something was following me, just a few steps behind. But I couldn't see them, only hear the rustling. I turned around again and again, but there was no one. Then everything stopped. No wind, no sound, nothing. And then I woke up. Not in my bed, not in my apartment, not in anything I recognized. At first, I thought it was still the dream. That moment between waking and sleeping, when your brain fumbles for reality. But the sheets were rough, the pillow stiff, the walls were beige. I was in a bedroom, unfamiliar, lifeless. Nothing on the walls. A lamp flickered in the corner. The air smelled like mold and plastic. I sat up slowly, my pulse already pounding. In my ears. This was not my room. This was not my bed. And I was not alone. I felt it. That pressure. The kind you feel when someone watches you in silence. I turned my head sharply. Empty room. No one. But the feeling didn't leave. It burrowed into the back of my skull like a whisper I couldn't hear. The bedroom door was open just a crack. I stepped out into a hallway, long, narrow, painted. A sickly yellow. The floor creaked under my feet. The house was old. Very old. No windows in the hallway, just doors. 5 of them, all shut. Except the one at the end. Slightly ajar, I called out. "Hello." No answer, just silence. I reached for my phone. It was gone. No pockets either. I was wearing a thin hospital-style gown that wasn't mine. My chest tightened. Every muscle in my body told me to leave, to run, but where? I opened the door at the end of the hall. Inside was a living room, dusty, with antique furniture. A grandfather clock ticked steadily in the corner, the only sound in the house. The TV was on, but nothing played. Just black screen. No static, just black. Then I saw it, on the wall. A photo of me, smiling with a family I'd never seen before. A man, a woman, 2 kids. I stood in the middle, arm around the woman, laughing, happy. I've never met them in my life. I backed away, my breath shortened. I turned to the nearest table and found more photos, dozens, all of me. In different rooms, different clothes, always with the same family. Celebrations, birthdays, beach trips, Christmas morning. None of them were real. None of them happened. But the images were real. Tangible. I could feel the paper. My legs nearly gave out. I ran to the front door. It didn't have a knob, just a keyhole, rusted and hollow. I pulled, yanked. It wouldn't budge. The windows were nailed shut. I felt like I was inside a memory that didn't belong to me. Then the phone rang. A rotary phone in the corner of the living room. Old, dust-covered. I hesitated, then picked it up. "Hello." There was breathing. And then a voice, low, cracked like it had forgotten how to speak. "You're back." I slammed the phone down. I rushed back to the hallway. The doors were now open, all 5, but inside each room, nothing, just furniture. A bed, a dresser, a mirror. Identical rooms, except the last one. In that room. The bed was freshly made. The walls were clean. And on the nightstand my phone, I grabbed it. No signal, but the photo gallery was full. Hundreds of pictures. All of me sleeping in that bed. I didn't take them. I didn't sleep there. But the timestamp on each photo was real, going back days, weeks. My knees hit the floor. I stared at the screen until something changed. The last photo was loading a live photo. My eyes were closed. I was in the bed, and in the corner of the frame. Someone was standing, tall, thin eyes glowing faintly. The image shifted. They moved closer. Still frame, closer. And then it ended. I threw the phone. The screen shattered. Footsteps echoed down the hall. I held my breath. Slowly turned. No one, but on the wall now, where the photo had once hung, was a mirror. And in that mirror, the family was back. Behind me, watching still. I spun around. Nothing. I looked again. They were closer. I screamed. Shattered the mirror. The glass cut into my arms, my hands. But I didn't feel the pain. Only the panic. I ran into the hallway. Tried every door. All locked now. All 5. Then I noticed the bedroom. The first one. The bed I'd woken up in. It was different now. Covered in flowers. And someone was lying in it. Me. Lifeless. Pale, dead. I reached out, my hand went through the body, through the sheets. I wasn't touching anything. And then it hit me. I never woke up. That field, that dream. Something followed me. And when I fell asleep in my real world, I was pulled into this one. A house that wasn't mine. A life that wasn't mine. A bed that remembered too much. I ran to the front door again. This time it opened, and I stepped outside, into another house, another hallway, another front door. It never ends. I keep waking up in new rooms. New versions of this house. Each one more wrong than the last. And now, I can hear the voice again, from the rotary phone that keeps ringing. You're back. It was a Tuesday night, one of those heavy, sleepy kinds, where the city outside is muffled by fog, and even your thoughts feel slow. Zion had just moved into a small apartment in the old part of town, cheaper rent, high ceilings, and vintage charm. He wasn't worried about the cracked walls, or the fact that the previous tenant had vanished without notice. People came and went all the time in cities like this. He needed a quiet place to finish his thesis, and this apartment, with its creaky floors and peeling wallpaper, seemed harmless enough. Until 2:17 a.m. Zion had always been meticulous about his phone. Face ID was set up precisely only his face could unlock it. He lived alone, kept the door locked, and rarely had visitors. That night, he'd been asleep for hours when he was pulled from his dream by a soft click. A familiar sound. The sound of his phone unlocking. He sat up. The room was dark, the only light coming from the phone screen on his desk across the room. It glowed softly, unlocked. He blinked, confused. Had he forgotten to lock it? Maybe it registered his face while he was moving in his sleep, but he always left the phone face down at night. He got out of bed and picked it up. The home screen was open, and a notification banner showed. Face ID unlocked at 2:17 a.m. His hands went cold. He hadn't touched it. His breath grew shallow. He went into settings, checked Face ID logs just for his own peace of mind. The last unlock, 2:17 a.m. Confirmed. His heart thumped. It had unlocked from across the room. Zion quickly turned on all the lights. The apartment felt smaller suddenly, claustrophobic. He checked the locks. All shut. Windows secure. It had to be a glitch. But then, that night, and every night after, the phone unlocked at exactly 2:17 a.m. He even tried placing the phone in a drawer. Still, the screen would light up. Face ID successful. No one else in the room. No one he could see. One night, determined to catch whatever was happening, he set up his laptop to record with the webcam aimed at the desk. He left his phone as usual and went to bed, barely sleeping. The next morning, he opened the footage and fast-forwarded to 2:16 a.m. For a moment, the screen showed nothing. Just the phone, silent. Then, exactly at 2:17 a.m., the webcam flickered. Something moved into frame. Not a person. Not really. A dark shape, almost like a face, but blurred. The webcam struggled to focus. It leaned over the phone. No footsteps. No noise. Just an unnatural presence, and the screen lit up, unlocked. Zion's face turned white. He rewound, watched it again. Over and over. The shape had no eyes, just empty sockets. And something else. When it turned slightly, he saw what looked like his own face, hollowed, dead, grinning. He didn't sleep that night. The next day, Zion went to the Apple store. He showed them the logs. The technician laughed. Face ID doesn't unlock without a match, he said. Unless someone really looks like you. Back at the apartment, the feeling of being watched got worse. Every mirror seemed to hold on to his reflection, a second too long. His voice echoed back, delayed. His dreams changed. He would wake up standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom, whispering things he couldn't remember. And every time, his phone would unlock. 2:17 a.m. One day, desperate for answers, he spoke to the old landlady who lived 2 floors below. She didn't say much at first, just shook her head and muttered, "You took the apartment," I told them. "Not to rent it out again?" Again, Zion asked. "Last boy, Ali, same thing happened. Phone unlocks. Nightmares, talking to himself. Started saying someone was mimicking him, watching him, living through his eyes. Then,
What?
he went missing. The mirror in the hallway was shattered. Blood on the floor. No one found him. Zion moved out that same day. He didn't pack everything, just his essentials. Left the apartment with the furniture, the books, even the laptop. But something followed him. At the hotel that night, he slept with the lights on. He placed his phone inside the mini fridge, surrounded by clothes to block the camera. But still, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the screen lit up. Face ID successful. He threw the phone away the next morning, bought a new one, different brand. No face recognition. But he didn't know this thing wasn't just in the phone. It had moved on, into the reflections, into his shadow, into the part of him he couldn't see. Now he sees flickers of his own face in windows, walking out of step. He turns corners and hears his own voice whispering things he hasn't said. People on the street glance twice at him. One even said, "I just saw you go inside," while he stood outside. And worst of all, he was brushing his teeth last night, staring into the bathroom mirror. When his reflection smiled, but he didn't. The clock in the hallway struck 2:17 a.m. The light flickered, and the bathroom door closed itself. It began on a Tuesday. I remember because that morning I woke up more exhausted than usual. Not just the usual grogginess, but a deep, bone-heavy fatigue like I'd run a marathon in my sleep. I lived alone in a quiet apartment complex, the kind where the hallways always smell faintly of dust and the buzz of fluorescent lighting is louder than any neighbor. I used to joke that I talked in my sleep. Sometimes I'd wake myself up murmuring half-formed sentences. A friend once told me to download a sleep recording app, just to see what I said at night. It felt harmless funny even, so I did. That night, I set my phone down beside my pillow, hit record, and fell into a dreamless sleep. At least, I thought it was dreamless. The next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds. My throat was dry, my legs sore. I felt like I hadn't slept at all. I checked the app. There were several recordings, more than I expected. The first few were normal. The soft rustle of sheets, an occasional sigh, one low mumble I couldn't understand. Then, at 2:42 a.m., there was a file labeled "Unknown Voice Detected" that caught my attention. I tapped it, static, then faint breathing, then my voice, or what I thought was my voice. "Are you awake now?" I froze. I never said that. I let it play. More breathing. A faint click, like fingernails tapping on the phone itself. And then, the same voice, whispering, "You shouldn't have closed your eyes." I deleted the app immediately. But the next night, I couldn't help it. Curiosity outweighed fear. I installed a new sleep recorder, one that didn't have smart detection, just raw audio. At 3:12 a.m., a loud thump jolted me awake. I was alone. I checked the recording before sunrise. This time, the voice didn't whisper. It sighed. Then came a dragging sound, like something heavy was being pulled across the carpet. Then my own voice, barely audible, muttering, "She's here again. I don't remember saying that. And I don't know who she is." I stopped using the app, but things got worse. I began waking up in different positions. Once, I found myself sitting upright in bed, eyes open, hands folded in my lap, as if I'd been waiting for something. Or someone. I started locking my bedroom door at night. I even slid a heavy chair in front of it. Yet every morning, the door would be open. The chair moved aside. I bought a baby monitor camera and set it up. The kind that records video and motion at night. That night, I went to bed earlier than usual. I took melatonin, hoping to knock myself out fully. The next morning, I felt drained, but this time, I had footage. The camera app showed one recording, timestamp, 3:03 a.m. The screen showed my bed still, quiet. Then movement. The blanket lifted, and something, some figure tall, shadow thin, with no face crawled out from underneath my bed. It stood, turned toward the camera, and stared. Then it whispered in a distorted, dragging voice, "Don't you remember me?" And then, the video glitched. I ran to the police. They watched it, rewound it, paused it. There was nothing. Not even the sound. Just a grainy shot of me sleeping, undisturbed. I knew I wasn't insane. I knew what I'd seen. The detective gave me a look I've seen before on people who don't know what to say. "Maybe get some rest," he muttered. "Stress can do strange things." I stopped recording myself. I threw away the camera. But something strange happened 3 nights later. I got a voice message from an unknown number. It was audio only. Shaking, I hit play. It was me, breathing heavily, like I'd just run for miles. Then my voice said, trembling, "She's in the mirror, don't look." Then a louder sound like someone shrieking through me, and the message cut off. I stared at the phone in disbelief. I hadn't sent it. I hadn't spoken those words, but it was undeniably my voice, and I had no memory of recording it. Later that night, I glanced into my bathroom mirror, and for the briefest moment, my reflection didn't move. I blinked. It didn't, until it smiled. Not my smile. Not mine at all. Now, I cover all the mirrors before I sleep. I leave lights on. I no longer lock my door, because whatever visits me doesn't need doors, or time, or permission. And every night at 3 a.m., I still hear that voice. Sometimes through the walls. Sometimes through my phone, even when it's off. And sometimes, inside my own head. "You're awake now. That means I can come closer." It was supposed to be a simple gadget, just a gift from a friend to help Kamal keep track of his health. He wasn't old, just 35, but years of working from home as a software engineer had made him sedentary. Sleep patterns a mess. Heart rate unchecked. So when his friend Safian gave him the smartwatch on his birthday, Kamal promised to wear it daily. I just want you alive, bro, Sufyan had laughed. So I won't have to visit your haunted house and find you fossilized at your desk. Kamal had smirked. He lived alone, yes. In an old colonial house, yes. But haunted, he wasn't that. Lucky. Yet, in the weeks that followed, Kamal began noticing small things. Subtle things. The smartwatch would buzz sometimes when he wasn't moving. Elevated heart rate detected, it would say, even if he was sitting perfectly still. Chalked it up to anxiety, work stress, too much coffee. He ignored it. Until one night, at exactly 3:03 a.m., the watch vibrated with a new message. Second heartbeat detected. Kamal blinked at it. What the hell? He sat up in bed, heart drumming in his ears, but maybe that was the point. Maybe the watch had malfunctioned, picking up his racing pulse twice. He checked the app. 2 heartbeats logged. One aligned with his own 72 BPM. The other, 74 BPM. Slightly out of sync, slightly different. The app even labeled it, User 1, Unknown 2. He restarted the app, then the watch. He even did a factory reset. It kept happening. Every night, around 3 a.m., the second heartbeat returned. Always between 60 and 80 BPM. Always close to his own. Never perfectly in sync. He slept with the lights on. He started locking the bedroom door. But locks don't stop what you can't see. It began to get worse. One evening, Kamal sat at his desk, coding. The room was silent. The only sound was the occasional click of the keyboard. Then the watch vibrated again. Second heartbeat detected proximity, 0.3 meters. He froze. The breath caught in his throat. He didn't move. He didn't turn. The proximity meant right behind him. He turned his phone's front camera on, pointed it over his shoulder. Nothing. He spun around. Nothing, but something felt wrong. The air behind him was heavy, like it had shape. The next morning, his smartwatch had logged 8 full minutes of dual heartbeats during sleep. Both steady, both close, both alive, and still. Kamal said nothing. Who would he tell? What would he say? My watch thinks I'm haunted. But inside, the fear was growing. Days passed. Kamal stopped sleeping. He began hearing the heartbeat with his own ears now, when the house was quiet enough. When he held his breath. When he dared to listen. Thump thump, thump thump. But not just his. One was always slightly behind. One night, he put the watch on the table before sleeping. Just to rest. Just to see. 3:04 a.m. He woke up with it on his wrist. He had no memory of getting up. Worse, the app had changed. It now showed activity. During sleep, user 2 active. Walking, 5 minutes, standing. 2 minutes proximity to user 1. Constant. He began recording himself at night. He set his phone up to capture his bed. For the first few nights, he saw nothing. Then came the 4th night. At 3:01 a.m., the screen flickered. A dark shape appeared at the edge of the frame. It stood there for almost 10 full minutes, unmoving, not entering, not leaving, just watching. He couldn't see a face, only the faint shape of arms, and something dangling from its wrist. A glowing band, a watch, just like his. Kamal Tried leaving the house. Checked into a hotel. Slept with lights on, doors locked, curtains open. At 3:06 a.m., the watch buzzed again. Second heartbeat detected. Proximity, 0 meters. He looked around the hotel room, empty. He slept in the bathroom that night, behind a locked door, his back against the wall, light glaring in his eyes. But sleep came. It always did. When he awoke, the mirror above the sink was fogged, written, "With a finger, we share the heart." Kamal's health began to decline. He was pale, shaking, hollow-eyed. Doctors found nothing wrong. His own heartbeat had become erratic. Sometimes it slowed without reason. Sometimes it accelerated during rest. But worst of all, sometimes it stopped for 2 seconds. Then started again, as if another rhythm had taken over. He stopped wearing the watch. He threw it away, but every morning it was back on his wrist. It began showing shared sleep goals achieved. Steps, dual tracking sleep quality, merged heart rate, synced his heart. Was no longer his. Then came the night he tried to destroy it. He took a hammer to the watch, shattered it into pieces. Threw the shards down the drain, burned the strap. That night, he didn't sleep, he waited. And when the clock struck 3 a.m., he felt it. The second heartbeat, stronger now, inside him, not near. Inside, his pulse doubled, his breath hitched. He ran to the mirror, held his wrist, no watch, but inside his chest, something was moving, something alive. Behind his reflection, another face began to form. Not quite his, not quite anyone's, but made of darkness, outlines, shadows. It smiled and whispered, "Finally, we are one." They found Kamal a week later, in his house, sitting calmly at his desk, eyes wide open, unblinking, smiling faintly. His smile, somehow perfectly intact, lay charging nearby. One of the paramedics picked it up. It vibrated. New user detected. Second heartbeat found. Proximity 0, 1 meters. The paramedic dropped it. Slowly turned around. Nothing behind him. But his own heart was racing, and he could feel it. A second one too. Closer and closer. I woke up in a different bed. That was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't mine, not even close. The smell was wrong. The sheets were stiffer, almost crispy, like they'd been freshly washed but never used. The ceiling had a faint yellow tint, old water stains blooming out like rotten petals. A slow fan circled above me, clicking with each rotation like a metronome, marking time in reverse. I sat up, blinking. This wasn't my apartment. The walls were wood-paneled, the kind you'd find in a 70s house that hadn't been remodeled. The bed I was in was queen-sized, the sheets faded floral, the air cold enough to bite. I didn't recognize the window, or the furniture, or the heavy antique mirror across from the bed. My phone wasn't on the side table. There was no clock, no light switch, just the mirror and me. I swung my legs to the side of the bed and felt a tight pull in my calves' soreness, like I'd run a marathon. My feet touched the floor, cold, stone cold, as if the heater had never been turned on in this place, or had been dead for years. I whispered to myself, trying to make the sound of my voice real. Where the hell am I? Then I noticed something else. There were no doors. No entrance, no exit. The walls were solid. Seamless. No hinges, no knobs. Not even an outline. Just 4 walls and a mirror. I stood, my legs were weak. The kind of weak that doesn't come from just lying down, but from something being drained out of you slowly over time. My breath fogged in the air. I walked up to the mirror, looked into it, and froze. The reflection wasn't right. It was me, yes, but slightly off. My skin was too pale, my eyes too sunken, my chest didn't rise and fall when I breathed, even though I could feel myself doing it. The me in the mirror wasn't mimicking me, it was watching me, just watching. Then it blinked, and I didn't. I stumbled back, heart hammering, reaching behind for anything to hold, but there was nothing. The room stretched around me. The corners grew darker. The mirror stayed bright, almost glowing, and the reflection began to smile, not fully, just the barest twitch at the corner of the mouth, enough to make you feel like you weren't alone anymore, enough to make your soul flinch. That's when I heard the footsteps. Outside, slow dragging steps, but this room had no door, still. The footsteps grew louder, like they were right beyond the wall, pacing, searching, as if something had forgotten where I was, and was now remembering. I backed away from the mirror. The room started to shift, the walls pulsed, like lungs breathing. The floral patterns on the bedsheets began to fade, turning black as mold creeped from underneath. I turned to the bed and saw the imprint of a body on the sheets. It was fresh, still warm. I hadn't just woken up in this bed. I had been sleeping next to someone. Then I saw it. Hair, long black strands, twisted and tangled on the pillow. Beside mine, my stomach turned. I looked back at the mirror. The reflection was now standing behind me, my own face, but with black, empty eyes. Its mouth began to open slowly, wide, too wide, and then I heard her whisper, right in my ear, "You closed your eyes again." I gasped, woke up in a different bed, in a different room. Again brighter this time, yellow wallpaper, a ticking grandfather. Clock in the corner, the mirror was gone, but something else was off. There was a photo on the nightstand, a couple, me and someone else, a woman. She looked familiar, like someone from a dream I couldn't remember. The photo was old, faded, worn at the edges, and the woman's eyes had been scratched out with a fingernail. I got up, walked to the door, yes, a door this time, and opened it. A hallway. Silent, empty, covered in thick carpet that dulled the sound of my steps. I moved slowly, the way you do when you're not sure if you're awake or dreaming. The house smelled of old perfume, not fresh, not sweet. Something cloying. I passed rooms, each one filled with objects I didn't recognize. Old toys, dresses hanging from door frames, a dining table set for dinner, but coated in dust. Time had stopped here. Then I passed a mirror, a new one, and saw her, not beside me. Inside the mirror, smiling, waiting. I ran. Down the hall, into another room. Slammed the door. The room was identical to the first. Same bed, same fan, same sheets, same photograph. My throat went dry. I looked at the photo again. The woman's eyes were back. But now, my eyes were scratched out. The clock struck 3. Something moved. Beneath the bed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. But I heard her again. "You keep waking up. But you never leave." I don't know how long I've been here. Sometimes I sleep. Sometimes I wake. Each time, I'm in a different room, a different house. But the mirror always finds me. And she's always watching, closer each time. The last time I blinked, she was in the corner of the mirror. Next time, I think she'll be in the room. Maybe this is death. Maybe this is a dream. Or maybe I never woke up at all. But if you ever find yourself waking up in a bed that isn't yours, with a house that isn't home, check the mirror. And whatever you do, don't blink. Don't close your eyes. And never let her in, because once you see her, she never stops seeing you. I moved into the apartment 3 weeks ago. It was nothing special, just a small one-bedroom on the 5th floor of an old building on the quieter side of town. I picked it because it was cheap, close to work, and came mostly furnished. The walls were yellowed from age, and the floors creaked like they had secrets. But I didn't care. I needed solitude, and this place offered it. I brought only a few belongings, clothes, books, and my Bluetooth speaker, a gift from my sister. It was one of those newer smart models, capable of syncing with your phone, reading texts aloud, or playing relaxing music as you fall asleep. The first night, I set the speaker up on my nightstand. It didn't work. I tried pairing it with my phone. Nothing. I assumed it was broken, or maybe the apartment had some sort of signal interference. I shrugged and went to bed without it. But then, at exactly 3 a.m., I woke up. Not from a dream. Not from a noise. I just woke up, and the speaker was on. Its blue LED was glowing faintly, and soft static poured from it, like an untuned radio. I got up, confused, checked my phone. It wasn't paired. "Hello?" I asked, half smiling at my own ridiculousness. The static cut for a second, and a sound emerged. A breath, then silence. I turned it off and went back to sleep. The next night, the same thing happened. 3 a.m., static. Then this time, a faint whisper, "You can hear me now." My skin prickled. I backed away from the speaker like it had just moved on its own. I unplugged it and left it that way. The following day, I called my sister. "Have you ever had issues with that speaker?" I asked. She hesitated. "It was our cousin's. I gave it to you because, well, she passed away last year and I couldn't bring myself to throw it out. She died, yeah, in her sleep." That speaker was on her bedside table. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I tried to brush it off. Just a weird coincidence. Speakers don't work when they're unplugged. Maybe it was malfunctioning, somehow retaining battery or power. I decided not to sleep with it in the room anymore. I moved it to the living room. At 3 a.m., I woke up again. Only this time, the speaker wasn't just making noise. It was playing music, a soft, distorted piano tune, like a child tapping random keys. I tiptoed into the living room and found it sitting exactly where I'd left it, glowing. The music stopped, and a voice said, "Don't ignore me." I choked on my breath. I couldn't speak. My hands trembled as I unplugged the speaker again, and this time threw it into the trash outside. I didn't care if it was haunted or just faulty, wasn't keeping it. But at 3 a.m. the next night, I woke up anyway. The sound came from the hallway, that soft, dreadful piano melody. I opened the door to the living room. The trash bin was empty, and the speaker was back on the shelf, glowing, whispering, playing. "You're not listening." I moved out of the apartment for a few days. Stayed with a friend. While I was gone, nothing happened. I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. I didn't hear voices. I felt normal again. So of course, I went back. Rationalized it all. Maybe I imagined things. Maybe I was just exhausted. The first night back was quiet. The second night was not. At 3 a.m., I woke to a woman's voice humming through the speaker. A soft, melodic tune I didn't recognize. But it felt old, like something passed down generations. Like a lullaby meant to soothe you as you slipped out of life. I turned on the lights, panicking, but the speaker didn't stop. The voice grew louder, closer. It wasn't coming from the speaker anymore. It was coming from inside the room. I turned, slowly, and saw her, standing at the foot of my bed. Draped in a white nightgown, her hair soaking wet, her mouth slightly open in a frozen hum. Her eyes didn't blink, they just stared right at me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I blinked, and she was gone. The speaker dropped to the floor with a thud. I stayed up the rest of the night, shaking. The humming stayed with me, in my head, in my ears, in my bones. The next day, I researched the previous tenants of the apartment. I found a name, Lena Marlowe. She had died in the apartment. 3 years ago. Died in her sleep, they said. Cause unknown. She lived alone. Only possession left behind was a smart speaker. That same night, I had a nightmare. In it, I was lying. In bed, unable to move, and someone was standing over me. Lena. Her eyes were bleeding. Her mouth wide open, but no sound came out. Only static. The speaker was on her chest, glowing, and she whispered, "This was mine, not yours, not yours." When I woke, my bed sheets were soaked in sweat. My fingernails were cracked and bleeding, and on my nightstand, the speaker sat quietly, back in its place. I tried destroying it. I smashed it with a hammer, burned it in my fireplace, watched it melt. But at 3 a.m., it was back, whole clean, playing a new message. You'll hear me forever. I don't sleep anymore, and yet I wake every night at exactly 3 a.m. The speaker hums, the whispers begin, and she stands at the corner of my room, watching, waiting, mouth never moving, eyes never blinking. Sometimes, I wonder if I already died. If the apartment consumed me, if the speaker isn't haunted at all but is a door, and once you listen, it doesn't just let you hear, it lets her in. And now I know she was never trapped in the speaker. I am. And at 3 a.m. tonight, she might be playing through yours. The first time it happened, I thought it was just exhaustion. It had been a long week, longer than usual. I had barely slept, trying to meet my deadlines, juggling early morning meetings and late night editing marathons. The lack of rest had started playing tricks on my mind, I was sure of it. That night, I lay in bed with the lights off, eyes heavy. As I drifted into sleep, I closed my eyes, but I still saw her. Not like a dream, not like imagination, clear as daylight. A woman, pale, unmoving, standing in the far corner of my room, shrouded in shadow. Her hair was long and clung to her face as if wet. Her eyes were shut. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. I opened my eyes. Empty room. I closed them again. She was still there. I gasped and jolted awake. Sweat soaked through my shirt. My heart felt like it had just finished sprinting. The clock read 2:43 a.m. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I forced myself to act normal. Coffee, shower, work. But something about the night before lingered. I felt watched, not by someone around me but from within me, like something had latched on. I told myself it was sleep paralysis, a visual hallucination. But even then, it didn't explain what happened the following night. I was afraid to sleep. I kept the lamp on. I played music. I tried distracting myself with videos until I couldn't hold my eyes open anymore. When I finally let them close, she returned. Same position, same lifeless hair, same frozen silence, only now her eyes were open. They were wide and glassy, and though her body didn't move, I could feel her stare cut through the dark like a blade. I tried to force my eyes open. I screamed, but no sound came out. I was stuck in this liminal blindness, this cursed middle space where sleep and reality bled together. And the worst part, she was closer than last time. When I woke, the lamp was off. I moved into my living room the next night. Slept on the couch, wrapped in blankets with all the lights on. It made no difference. The moment I closed my eyes, I saw the hallway, and at the end of it, her crawling slowly across the floor. Not walking, crawling, as if her bones had forgotten how to stand. I snapped my eyes open, nothing. Then something creaked in the hallway. I stared at the open doorway for what felt like hours. My own breath became foreign to Miragd, uneven. Like I wasn't the one in control anymore. I didn't sleep at all. I started keeping my eyes open for as long as possible. I dropped cold water, slapping myself awake. I stopped working, stopped answering texts. I kept the TV on all night. But even then, the screen would glitch. Every static flicker felt like her voice trying to seep in. One night, I fell asleep sitting up on the bathroom floor, fluorescent light buzzing overhead. I closed my eyes. I saw her face right in front of mine. She was no longer far away. She was kneeling. Her mouth hung open just slightly, like she was about to say something, but nothing came out. Then, her hand twitched. I opened my eyes with a cry, and in the mirror, for just 1 second, I saw her behind me. I knew I couldn't go on like this. I sought help. Doctors prescribed sleep aids. One of them called it a lucid entoptic hallucination triggered by prolonged sensory deprivation. Another suggested I see a therapist. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just in my mind. Something had broken through. I set up a camera next to my bed. I left it recording all night. The next morning, I watched the footage, heart pounding. Nothing. Just hours of me tossing and turning. But at 3:12 a.m., something strange happened. The screen went black for exactly 13 seconds. Then it resumed. I played it again. Same result. The blackout period was consistent. No power cut. Just 13 seconds missing. I enhanced the audio right before the blackout. I heard breathing. That day, I visited a sleep researcher at the university. I told him everything. He was skeptical, but intrigued. He offered to monitor me overnight in the lab. I agreed. They wired my head, strapped sensors to my chest. The room was cold, clinical, windowless, nothing like my home. I felt oddly safe, until I fell asleep, and saw her again. But this time, I wasn't in the lab. I was in my bedroom. I saw the covers I hadn't used in days. I saw the nightstand. I saw the open closet door, and her standing beside the bed, watching the camera. Then, she turned slowly toward me, her lips parted, and she whispered, "I can't see if your eyes are closed unless I'm inside." I screamed. They woke me up instantly. My pulse was erratic, blood pressure through the roof. They told me I had gone into REM at exactly 3:12 a.m. And for 13 seconds, I had no brain activity. None. Clinically. I had been dead. That night, I didn't go home. I couldn't. I checked into a hotel. A different bed. A different room. No camera. No lamp. Just me and my fear. I was afraid to blink. Afraid to dream. But sleep always wins. I closed my eyes. And still saw her. Only now, she wasn't in my house. She was in the hotel. She was standing at the foot of the bed, and her mouth was moving, repeating one line, over and over. "You brought me with you." I downloaded the sleep app out of boredom, really. It was one of those nights where sleep just wouldn't come. I'd tried everything, reading melatonin, calming music. Nothing worked. So I searched for something new. Something different. An app popped up. Somnus Sleep with Insight. Its reviews were glowing. People said they woke up feeling more refreshed, remembered their dreams vividly, and even claimed the app understood them. That last word stuck with me. Understood. It sounded odd for a sleep tracker, but I downloaded it anyway. The interface was clean, a soft black background with a blue waveform pulsing like a heartbeat. It asked permission for microphone access, motion detection, and, strangely, something called conscious sync. I clicked allow without thinking. I was tired. I just wanted sleep. That first night, I placed the phone face down on the nightstand and hit start tracking. A gentle chime rang out, and a female voice whispered, "Sleep well. You are not alone." I paused. Was that part of the app? Brushing it off, I closed my eyes. I dreamed vividly. A hallway, long and pulsing, with white light, doors on either side, all closed. At the end of the hallway was a mirror, but it didn't reflect me. It showed something else. My bed, my room, but with someone standing next to me. A woman, tall, featureless, her head slightly tilted as though she was listening to something only she could hear. I woke up gasping, my shirt soaked in sweat. The app had a playback feature. It played recordings of noises caught during sleep, snoring, tossing, or strange sounds. I tapped it. 2:59 a.m., whisper detected. I hit play. There was static at first, then a low layered voice, not mine, saying, "Deeper, stay still. I see you." I stared at the screen, my hand frozen above the phone. It wasn't a bug. It wasn't a glitch. The voice was real, but curiosity outweighed fear. I recorded again the next night. The dreams continued. Now I wasn't just in the hallway. I was in other rooms. Rooms that resembled my own but were subtly wrong. The mirror in the bathroom showed things behind me that weren't there. The reflection in the kitchen window blinked when I didn't. The photographs on the walls changed every night. I was walking deeper into a house that looked like mine but wasn't. Each night the voice on the recording grew clearer. "We remember. You've come back. Don't close your eyes this time." By the fourth night, I wasn't even scared anymore. I was entranced. The app had a new tab unlocked, marked only with a symbol, a spiral turning inward. It was called Lucid Link. When I tapped it, the screen glitched briefly. Then, a message appeared. You are ready. From that night on, I didn't just dream. I entered the space fully. I walked, I talked. I could feel the floor under my bare feet, the cold doorknobs, the flickering lights above me. But I was never alone. She was always there now. The tall woman with blurred features and a head that tilted unnaturally to the side. She didn't speak, but I felt her watching me, curious, almost protective. She never harmed me, just followed, from room to room. And somehow, I began to need her there. One night I fell asleep without turning on the app. I wanted to see if the dreams would still come. They didn't. I woke up to silence. Real silence. No whispers, no shifting shadows, no house that breathed like it was alive. It was just my room, my bed, the dull morning sun, and I felt an overwhelming sense of loss, like someone I loved had disappeared. I tried turning the app back on, but it refused to load. It only displayed a message. Access complete. Session closed. I tried deleting and reinstalling. It was gone from the App Store. I searched online. No results. The icon had vanished from my home screen. Days passed. I didn't sleep. Not well. Not truly. Because the dreams were no longer just dreams. They were something else. Something I'd crossed into. Something I'd been invited into. And now that I'd left, I wasn't alone anymore. At night, just as I drift off, I hear her, not from the app, not from the recordings, but from behind the closet door, from under the bed, from the crack in the ceiling. She whispers the same thing. You shouldn't have stopped. We were just beginning. Now I understand what the app was. It wasn't tracking me. It was training me, preparing me for something beyond sleep, beyond dreams. Now, when I close my eyes, I don't see blackness. I see her waiting. And sometimes, I don't even have to sleep anymore. She comes anyway. I've always had the habit of checking my sleep stats in the morning. You know, smartwatches, fitness apps, modern routines. But one morning last November, something didn't make sense. My GPS history showed I'd spent the night in 2 different locations. Half my sleep was logged at my apartment in downtown Chicago. The other half, a residential address 40 miles away. A house I'd never been to. I laughed at first. Thought maybe the app had glitched. But the timestamps were precise, minute by minute. According to the log, I fell asleep in my bed at 11:12 p.m. And at exactly 2:04 a.m., I relocated to the other house. Not by car, not by steps, just there. I thought I must have sleepwalked into an Uber or something. But I checked my doorbell camera footage. I never left. I was in bed the whole time, tossing occasionally, mouth slightly open, breathing shallow. So why did the GPS say otherwise? Curiosity turned into obsession. I couldn't shake the unease. That second location, 93 Blackwell Lane, was a real house, a small 2-story cottage on the edge of the city, surrounded by dying oak trees and rusting windows. I drove there. I had to. The house was empty, overgrown, but not abandoned. There were signs of life. A fresh newspaper on the porch. A porch light that worked. A single rocking chair that creaked, though there was no wind. I walked up to the door and rang the bell. Nothing. I knocked. The sound echoed too long, like the walls inside were hollow. When I turned to leave, I noticed something in the dirt near the stairs, a footprint. Barefoot, fresh. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my GPS every few minutes. I watched the dot that was me. At 2:04 a.m., I saw it again. The dot moved, and this time I felt it. I gasped awake, covered in sweat, my heart hammering. My room felt wrong. The air was thicker, the shadows deeper. My phone vibrated with a notification. Sleep phase interrupted. Relocation detected. But I hadn't moved, or had I? The following morning, I noticed something chilling. My shirt, the one I'd fallen asleep in, was missing. In its place was a different one. Faded red. Smelled of smoke and old perfume. I didn't own it. I called my sister. Told her I was scared. She's always been the practical one. She came over, brought coffee, joked that I was just dreaming weird. But when she checked the GPS history herself, her smile faded. "You were there," she said. Look photos were taken at 2:31 a.m. My stomach dropped. I checked the gallery. There were 3 photos I didn't remember taking. All black and white. All slightly distorted, like taken through static. The first was of a long hallway with peeling wallpaper. The second was of a mirror cracked hand in its reflection. Someone standing behind the camera. Someone, not me. The third was of a room I recognized. It was my childhood bedroom, but it hadn't existed in years. That's when the dreams started. Each night I'd find myself in a different version of my apartment. Same layout, but slightly off. The windows looked out onto forests instead of streets. The fridge was empty and humming too loudly. The lights flickered no matter how many times I changed the bulb. And in every dream, at exactly 2:04 a.m., I'd hear footsteps. Not on the floor, on the ceiling. I tried everything. Sleeping pills, staying awake through the night, disabling location tracking, even disconnecting the Wi-Fi. But nothing helped. The dreams continued. The relocations continued. Then came the worst night. I woke up not in bed, but sitting upright in a chair. In the house on Blackwell Lane, the smell of dust and wood rot choked me. Across from me was a table. On the table was a photograph. It was me, sleeping in my apartment. From the angle of the photo, whoever took it had been standing over me. I ran, out the door, into the woods. No roads, no signals, just trees and dark skies. I don't know how long I ran, but when I stumbled and fell, I landed in my own bed, gasping like I had fallen through the ceiling. It was 2:05 a.m. My door was unlocked. There were muddy footprints leading from the hall to my bed, but they weren't mine. The next day, I installed a camera facing my bed, another in the hallway. I forced myself to stay awake, gripping a baseball bat, breathing slow. I nodded off anyway. When I woke up, the cameras were gone. In their place was a note, not written, carved into the wall above my bed. You sleep in 2 places, but one of them is mine. I moved to a new apartment, brand new, top floor, full security, no connection to the past. And for a week, everything was normal. No GPS jumps, no dreams. Until today, when I woke up, my phone had a new notification. Sleep relocation. 2:04 a.m. 293 Blackwell Lane, but that house burned down 5 nights ago. And still, I was there. Because now, every night, I sleep in 2 places. And in one of them, something else sleeps next to me. Waiting, watching, counting down the minutes until 2:04 a.m. It began on a Monday. The kind of Monday where everything feels just a little bit wrong. Your coffee tastes burnt. Your clothes feel tighter, and the silence in your apartment hums like it's waiting for something. Ethan was used to silence, after all. He lived alone in a studio apartment on the 12th floor of a concrete tower that barely scraped the skyline. He worked from home, rarely saw friends, and his only regular human interaction was the bored barista downstairs who never remembered his name. But that day, as he sat down to check his emails, he noticed something strange on his desktop. A video file, titled simply, "Sleep, Move." He blinked. He hadn't recorded anything. He didn't own any security cameras. His phone hadn't been near the bed. Curious, unsettled, he clicked the file. The screen filled with static for a second, then faded into grainy night vision footage. His own bed appeared, the one just 10 feet behind him. He was lying in it, asleep. The timestamp read, 2:47 a.m. He watched himself shift under the blanket. The camera remained completely still, as if mounted on a tripod. Then, slowly, from the left edge of the screen, something began to appear. A shape. Not quite human. A tall, thin figure entered the frame, crawling on all fours. Its limbs moved in jerky, unnatural angles, like a marionette with tangled strings. It crept closer to the bed, inch by inch. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he watched his own sleeping body, completely unaware. The thing didn't touch him. It simply leaned close, inches from his face, watching, for 5 long minutes. Then it turned to the camera and smiled. The screen went black. Ethan sat frozen, hand trembling on the mouse. His first instinct was to delete the file, but something in him, some dark curiosity, stopped him. He opened his phone's camera, turned it to face the room, and scanned. Slowly, nothing, just walls. Just shadows. That night, he barely slept. Every creak felt louder. Every corner darker. By Thursday, more videos began appearing, one each morning. Same title, same timestamp. Different footage. In one, the figure stood beside the bed the whole night, unmoving. In another, it crawled under the bed after Ethan rolled over. In yet another, it whispered something into his ear, but no audio played. Ethan began staying up. He set up his own phone to record the room. But come morning, the footage was corrupted every time, and another unknown file appeared, flawless, clear, as if filmed by something that knew what it was doing. On Saturday, he showed the file to a friend, Marcus. They watched the latest video in silence. "Maybe someone's messing with you," Marcus offered uneasily. "You sure your laptop isn't hacked?" Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't, because in the latest video, Marcus was standing behind him, watching him sleep. But Marcus hadn't been there, not once. The next night, he slept with the lights on, every device off, and the door bolted. No windows open, no cameras running, and yet, at 3 a.m., he woke to a soft click. The lights flickered once, and when he turned toward the door, the bolt was undone. He didn't remember unlocking it. That morning, the new file wasn't titled Sleep, Move. It was titled Awake, Move. It showed him sitting up in bed, staring at the door. In the footage, he whispered, "I know you're there." But he had no memory of saying it. His eyes in the video were wide, unblinking. Ethan contacted the building manager, asked for security camera access. But strangely, every recording from midnight to 4 a.m. had gone missing every single night for the past week. That night, Ethan left. He booked a hotel room an hour away, told no one, brought nothing but his phone. Just one night away, to reset his sanity. The hotel room was clean, safe. But when he opened his phone in the morning, there it was. Another video, titled, Room 407, Move. It showed the hotel room, it showed him, it showed the figure. But this time, the figure wasn't just watching, it was crawling into bed beside him. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He stared at the walls, flinching at every sound. By 3 a.m., the lights flickered again. He closed his eyes tightly, but he still saw it. The shape, the face, the smile. Inside his eyelids, somewhere beyond sight, beyond reason. It was there not to harm him, but to observe, to study, to stay. Weeks passed. Ethan returned home. The videos never stopped. Now, they arrive before he even sleeps, showing him things that haven't happened yet. Sometimes he hears his own voice in them. Sometimes he doesn't. And one night, the file was titled, Last Move. He hasn't opened it yet. And he doesn't think he ever will, because whatever's watching him through screens, through shadows, through thought, it doesn't want to hurt him. Not yet. It just wants him to know he's never alone again, even when the lights are off, even when the devices are unplugged, even when his eyes are closed. It sees him, and soon he'll see it too. It started when I moved into apartment 3B, a quiet top-floor flat in an old building tucked away behind a row of shops downtown. I was tired of city noise, and the place was cheap, too cheap. The agent told me it hadn't been occupied for over a year. Previous tenant left unexpectedly. I didn't care. I had a mattress, a desk, a few suitcases, and a growing need to be alone. The apartment was small and unremarkable, except for one thing. There were no electrical outlets in the bedroom. Just one outside the door, and one in the kitchen. When I asked about it, the agent simply shrugged and said, "It's an old building. Bedrooms back then weren't made for electronics." So I charged my phone on the kitchen counter every night. But that's when I began to notice something strange. Every morning, my phone would be dead. Not low, not drained. Completely shut off, like the battery had flatlined. I assumed the charger was faulty. I tried another, then a third. I even replaced the cable and power brick. Still, every morning, a dead phone. But only when I left it charging overnight. When I stayed awake and watched it, the battery would stay fine. I laughed it off at first. Told myself maybe the outlets were faulty. But even charging it in the hallway gave the same result. If I was asleep, one night I plugged it into a fully charged power bank. When I woke up, the phone was dead, and so was the power bank. I started sleeping with the lights on. I set up my laptop to record me through the night. The first few nights, nothing happened. Just stillness. No movements, no sounds. Just me breathing, sometimes tossing in my sleep. Then, on the 5th night, I saw it. At exactly 2:46 a.m., the screen glitched for a second. Just a flicker, like static, like the pixels warped. And then a shadow. A human-shaped silhouette leaned slowly into frame from the corner, just outside the bathroom door. It didn't move like a person. It didn't walk. It slid closer, until it was just behind me. The worst part, my eyes opened. I sat up slightly, stared directly at it, and then lay back down like nothing had happened. I had no memory of it. I didn't sleep the next night. I didn't dare. I watched the hallway from my bed, my phone plugged into the power bank. I left a candle lit. The air felt heavy, like the air itself was watching. I held the phone in my hand and kept checking the battery percentage. 85%, 84%, 83%. Then it happened. 2:46 a.m. The candle's flame shuddered. The air grew cold. Ice cold, breath in there cold. I couldn't hear the city anymore. No cars, no wind, just silence. My phone dimmed slightly. I blinked. The battery dropped from 76% to 4%. I stared in disbelief. I held the phone up, and then I saw it in the screen's reflection. A face behind me, pale, hollow eyes. No mouth. It wasn't on me. It was in me. I turned, nothing but my skin crawled. My head pounded. I felt like something had passed through me. My heart raced. And when I looked back at the phone, it was dead. The rest of that night was spent under blankets, shivering, with the lights on. The next morning, I visited the building manager. I asked about the previous tenant, the one who left unexpectedly. He looked uncomfortable, said her name was Clara, lived alone, seemed perfectly normal. Then neighbors started complaining about odd noises, electronics draining, whispers in the walls, and her banging on the doors in the middle of the night screaming, "It's draining me. It's feeding." They found her collapsed on the floor, alive, but unresponsive. No trauma, no cause. She was admitted to a psych ward, where she reportedly stopped speaking altogether. She just stared at walls, wouldn't blink, wouldn't move. She died in her sleep 3 months later. No cause ever found. Back in the apartment, I started seeing things in mirrors, not faces. Hints. A blink where there shouldn't be one. A flicker of someone standing just outside the frame. Always. At 2:46, I tried sleeping at friends' houses. The first few nights, I was fine. Then, one morning, my phone was dead again. At my friend's place, plugged into a brand new outlet. I checked the timestamp on my camera. It died at exactly 2:46 a.m. I stopped sleeping. I tried staying up. 3 nights in a row, but your body gives up eventually. I passed out on the couch, with everything on. Lights, TV, music. I woke up on my bed, my bedroom bed. I don't remember getting there. And all the devices in the house, laptop, phone, even the wall clock, were dead. The clock had stopped at 2:46. I called a paranormal expert. She listened quietly, then asked a single question. Have you invited it? What? Sometimes, things need a crack. A door slightly open. You gave it one. I hung up. That was useless. Then, I remembered something Clara had written in the corner of the mirror, barely visible now. Etched with a fingernail, or maybe a key. I hadn't noticed it before. It read, Do not close your eyes. Not fully, not ever. But how long could someone live like that? I'm writing this now by hand. Pens are the only thing it can't drain. No electronics. No batteries. I haven't slept in 62 hours. My body is giving out. I feel it pressing against my mind like fog. My vision is swimming. I think I'll try to sleep just for a moment. Just a few seconds. What's the worst that could wait? Something just turned off my candle. It's here. The battery's not what it wants. It's me.